Bet you still can't afford real shoes, my sister mocked my baby shower. The room fell silent when I said, these are from my own line. Nordstrom just picked us up. What happened next? It all started when I got pregnant. I had been trying for a baby for years, and when it finally happened, I expected everyone to be thrilled. After all, a new life is supposed to be a cause for celebration, right? But instead, things with my sister, Greta, got even worse. We'd always had a complicated relationship, but things had started to unravel long before my pregnancy. Growing up in Ridgewood, New York, we lived a modest life. Our parents weren't wealthy, but they worked hard. I was the dreamer in the family, always coming up with new ideas and ambitions. My sister, Greta, was the practical one. The one who had it all figured out. I started a small business designing shoes when I was in my early 20s. It wasn't much at first, just a few online sales here and there, but I poured my heart and soul into it. Slowly, I began gaining traction. Eventually, I got a deal with a smaller department store chain, and that was a huge breakthrough. But my sister never understood. She'd always say things like, why don't you just get a real job, or, if you'd just gone to college, you wouldn't be wasting your time. I wasn't the type to let her comments get under my skin, but as the years went on, I started feeling more and more alienated. She seemed to think that anything I did wasn't serious enough. And honestly, it hurt. When I found out I was pregnant, I was excited, but I also knew that the arrival of this baby would only make things more complicated with my sister. I was right. From the moment I told her, Greta's response was cool. Almost dismissive. That's great, she said, but the way she said it made it clear she wasn't genuinely happy for me. Now, fast forward to my baby shower. I had been running on fumes trying to balance the business with preparing for the baby. My friends had all pitched in to help organize the event, but Greta had insisted on handling a lot of the planning. And to be honest, it showed. The venue felt too cramped for the number of people invited, the decorations were nothing to write home about, and the food? Let's just say I wasn't impressed. Still, I wanted to make the best of it. After all, it was a celebration of my baby, and I had my friends and family there. But as soon as I walked into the room, I could feel a shift. Greta was there, as expected. Her platinum blonde hair was styled perfectly, and her outfit was flawless. She always had a way of looking like she stepped out of a fashion magazine. On the other hand, I was wearing a pair of shoes from my own line, shoes that were sleek, comfortable, and just about to launch in Nordstrom. I had been so excited about this deal, but I wasn't planning to make a big deal about it. I just wanted to focus on my baby shower and enjoy the moment. But Greta noticed immediately. She took one look at my shoes and gave me that look. That look I had come to know all too well. It was a mix of superiority and mockery. I tried to ignore it, but I could feel her eyes on me. A few minutes later, she approached me with a drink in hand and a smirk on her face. Wow, she said, her voice just loud enough for others to hear, you finally got some shoes that aren't from a bargain bin. I bet you still can't afford real shoes, though. I froze. The room grew quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. A part of me wanted to just laugh it off, but another part of me was tired. Tired of letting her get away with things like this. Tired of feeling like I was always beneath her. So I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. Actually, I said, keeping my voice calm and steady, these are from my own line. Nordstrom just picked us up. There was a moment of absolute silence. I could feel the tension in the air as everyone processed what I had said. Greta's face went from smug to confused, then to a quick, forced smile. What? She said, not believing it. What are you talking about? I've been working on a shoe line for a couple of years now, I explained. It's called Alara, and we just got picked up by Nordstrom. They'll be available in store soon. Greta's smile faltered, and I could see the envy flicker in her eyes. She quickly tried to change the subject, turning away to chat with someone else. But I could tell she was rattled. The rest of the shower was filled with awkward silences and strained conversations. Greta's usual sarcastic comments were gone, replaced with a stiff politeness that didn't feel genuine at all. But I wasn't about to apologize. I had spent too many years letting her put me down. Later on, my mom pulled me aside. She was upset. "Chloe, you shouldn't have said that," she whispered. "You know how Greta is. You didn't have to rub it in her face like that." I looked her in the eye and said, "Mom, I'm done letting her walk all over me. I've let her belittle me for years, and I'm not doing it anymore. I'm proud of what I built, and I'm not ashamed of it." My mom didn't say much after that, but I could tell she wasn't happy with how things had gone. Greta ended up leaving early, and the rest of the baby shower went by without any major incidents. I didn't care. I had finally stood up for myself. And I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. In the days that followed, things between Greta and me were tense. She sent me a few passive-aggressive messages, like asking if I really needed to brag about my business at my own shower, but I ignored them. I wasn't going to engage. I didn't need her approval anymore. A few weeks later, I ran into Greta at a family dinner. The first words out of her mouth were, "I've been thinking about what happened at your shower, and I wanted to apologize." I wasn't expecting an apology, honestly. Not from Greta. But she looked genuine. "I was jealous," she admitted, her voice quieter now. "You've always done your own thing, and I was so focused on my own career that I didn't even see how much I was putting you down. I've been competitive with you for so long that I didn't realize how much it hurt you." I was silent for a moment, unsure of how to respond. I never expected this from her. "Greta," I said finally, "I've always been proud of you. You're smart, you have a great career, and you've done well for yourself. I just wish you could have been proud of me, too." She nodded, looking down. "I was wrong, Chloe. And I'm sorry for that. We didn't become best friends right away. The years of hurt couldn't be erased in a single conversation. But we started rebuilding our relationship, one small step at a time. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. And as for me? I was more confident than ever. My business was thriving. I had the baby I'd always dreamed of. And Greta, well, she learned that tearing others down doesn't make her more successful. It just makes her miserable. But, honestly, I still don't think I'll ever look at her the same way again. As time went on, things between Greta and me did improve, but the tension never completely faded. While I appreciated her apology, I couldn't just erase years of subtle criticism and backhanded compliments. I had to remind myself that this was a slow process, and I didn't expect everything to change overnight. Still, there were moments when I wondered if things would ever feel completely normal again. After the baby was born, life became a whirlwind. Max and I were adjusting to being new parents, and I was still balancing my business, which was growing at an unexpected pace. There were days when I felt completely overwhelmed, but I had a supportive network of friends and my mom who helped me along the way. The baby's arrival brought joy, but it also highlighted the complexity of my relationship with Greta. A few weeks after the baby was born, Greta reached out again. This time, she didn't send a snide comment or a passive-aggressive message. She asked if I wanted to meet up for coffee, just the two of us. I was hesitant at first. My life had changed so much in the past few months, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to dive back into the dynamics that had caused so much frustration in the past. But I agreed, wanting to give her a chance to prove that her apology wasn't just words. We met at a small cafe in Ridgewood. Greta looked different somehow. Maybe it was the softer, quieter tone of her voice when she greeted me or the way she avoided making jokes at my expense. It was as if the old, competitive, snarky version of her was gone, at least for the moment. "Chloe," she started, taking a deep breath, "I know I've messed up. And I know it's going to take a while for things to feel right between us. But I want to be better. For you, and for the baby." The sincerity in her words was something I hadn't expected. My stomach twisted with a mixture of hope and caution. I wanted to believe that things could change, but part of me still wasn't sure if I could trust her fully. "I appreciate that," I said, my voice soft but guarded. "But it's going to take time, Greta. I've had to build a life for myself, one where I don't have to keep justifying my choices or feeling like I'm not good enough. I need to feel like you see me for who I am, not who you want me to be." She nodded, eyes downcast. "I get that. And I've been thinking about it a lot. You're doing something incredible with your business, Chloe. I'm not just saying that. I've seen the way people react to your shoes. They're talking about you. And I was too caught up in my own stuff to ever see that. You're not some silly little dreamer. You're a real businesswoman." Her words struck a chord. It wasn't the praise I'd been waiting for, but it was close. It felt like, for the first time, Greta wasn't just trying to diminish me or diminish my work. She was acknowledging it. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, mostly about the baby, of course. She asked about Max, and I told her about the ups and downs of parenthood. It was the first time in a long while that we had a conversation that didn't feel forced or awkward. As we parted ways, I wasn't sure where things would go from there. But I knew that I couldn't just keep holding on to the past. If I wanted to truly move forward, I needed to allow myself to let go of the bitterness and resentment that had built up over the years. A few weeks later, Greta invited me to one of her work events, a charity gala she had been organizing for the hotel she worked at. She had been talking about it for months, and I could tell it was a big deal for her. I wasn't sure if I was ready to be fully involved in her world again, but I didn't want to be the one to shut her out. I told Max about the invitation, and he encouraged me to go. The night of the gala, I put on my best dress and did my best to ignore the nerves buzzing in my chest. When I arrived at the venue, it felt like walking into a different world. The hotel was one of those ultra-luxurious places, filled with chandeliers, marble floors, and people who all seemed to have their lives perfectly put together. It was Greta's world, a world I had never quite fit into. I spotted her almost immediately. She was in the middle of a conversation with some high-profile guests, her smile polished and flawless. She waved me over, and I joined her as she introduced me to a few of her colleagues. At first, it felt a little strange. I was so used to being around my own crowd, people who understood me. But as the night went on, I started to feel more at ease. Greta's colleagues were surprisingly down to earth, and we talked about the charity, the upcoming events, and, of course, the baby. At one point, Greta pulled me aside for a private conversation. She seemed a little nervous, which was unusual for her. She looked at me, hesitating before she spoke. "I just wanted to thank you for coming," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "I know you didn't have to. And I know it's been a lot to ask, considering how things have been between us." I smiled, trying to reassure her. "I'm here, Greta. I wanted to be here." "I'm proud of you," she said suddenly, her tone serious. "I don't think I ever really said that before. You've built something amazing with your business. It's impressive. And I see now how much work it takes." Her words felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest. I didn't expect her to be this open, and I certainly hadn't expected her to express her pride in me so directly. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was the most genuine acknowledgement I'd received from her in years. Still, I couldn't help but feel like there was more to the story, more unspoken between us. My relationship with Greta was still fragile, and I was wary of how easily it could snap back into old patterns. But I also realized that I couldn't force things. I had spent too much time in the past trying to change her, trying to make her see me the way I wanted her to. And now, I was beginning to realize that the only person I could truly control was myself. In the days that followed, we didn't talk much, but the atmosphere between us was different. There was no longer the undercurrent of bitterness that had once defined our relationship. We were slowly finding a way to coexist, and maybe that was enough for now. But as much as things were better, I knew deep down that my relationship with Greta would never be simple again. The layers of resentment and competition weren't something that could just disappear. It was going to take more time. And I wasn't sure if we would ever completely heal. But for the first time in a long while, I was starting to believe that things could improve. I couldn't control what Greta did or said, but I could choose how I responded. And that, for now, was enough. As the weeks passed, I couldn't help but notice the subtle shift in my relationship with Greta. She seemed to be trying, at least on the surface. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that nothing had really changed at its core. The jealousy, the competitiveness, they were still there. It wasn't that I wanted her to fail, I didn't. But I was beginning to feel that perhaps she didn't truly understand what it meant to be proud of me. I was starting to come to terms with the fact that my sister was never going to fully accept me without some lingering resentment. I was no longer the naive, idealistic girl who had spent years trying to win her approval. I had become someone who had achieved something real, my own shoe line, the Nordstrom deal, and a growing business. I had taken my dreams seriously, and the results spoke for themselves. Greta, despite her moments of softness and the attempts at reconciliation, was still stuck in a world where only certain types of success mattered, the kind that looked good on paper or came with status and prestige. She didn't seem to understand the value of the hard work, determination, and passion that had gotten me to where I was. One evening, not long after the gala, I received an email from my marketing team. The subject line read, "Exciting update, Nordstrom launch event." As I read the message, my heart skipped a beat. They were planning a major event for the launch of my shoes in Nordstrom stores nationwide. It was going to be the biggest thing to ever happen to Alara, my brand. The email confirmed that Nordstrom wanted to feature me as a guest designer at their flagship store for the event, offering an exclusive meet and greet with customers and media. This was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. But then I thought of Greta. Greta's job was in event coordination, a field where connections and visibility were everything. She had often taken pride in the events she organized, believing they were more important than anything I could ever do with my small business. I didn't want to rub my success in her face, but I had a feeling she was about to find out in the worst way possible. And as much as I tried to fight it, a part of me wanted her to see what real success looked like. I picked up the phone and called her. "Greta, I wanted to tell you about something exciting," I began, trying to keep my voice light. "Remember how I told you that my shoes were launching in Nordstrom? Well, they've scheduled a huge launch event for the flagship store. I'll be there, and it's going to be a big deal." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I didn't realize it was happening so soon," she replied, a touch of surprise in her voice. "That's great, Chloe. Congratulations." I could tell from her tone that her feelings were mixed. Part of her, no doubt, wanted to congratulate me. But I could hear the subtle bitterness underneath the surface. I wasn't going to let her sour the moment for me. "I know we've had our differences," I continued, "but I wanted to invite you to come. It's going to be a huge event with media coverage, and I thought it might be something you'd want to see up close. I've worked really hard for this, Greta." She hesitated again, her voice quieter now. "I'll think about it, Chloe." I knew she was grappling with the realization that my success, the success she had so often dismissed, was something she couldn't ignore. A part of me had hoped she'd swallow her pride and show up, but I wasn't going to beg. She either showed up and supported me, or she didn't. Either way, I wasn't going to let her pull me down anymore. The day of the Nordstrom launch event came, and everything went off without a hitch. The store was packed, and I could feel the excitement buzzing in the air. The media was there, the customers were eager to meet me, and the buzz around my brand was palpable. I stood proudly at the front of the store, talking with customers and fans, taking photos, and signing autographs. It was everything I had worked for and more. I didn't see Greta at the event. I wasn't surprised, but a part of me had secretly hoped she would come. She never showed. But then, just as I was winding down the event, I received a message from my PR team. "Chloe, there's someone from Vogue here asking about your story. They want to feature you in their upcoming issue." My heart leapt. Vogue. This was huge. I was barely able to process the thought, but they were seriously considering featuring me. The publicity alone would be incredible for Alara, not to mention the incredible boost it would give my career. I couldn't wait to share this news with Max. As the event wrapped up, I stepped outside for a moment of quiet to take it all in. My phone buzzed. It was a text message from Greta. "Congratulations on the Nordstrom event," it read. "I heard it went well. I know you're proud of what you've built, but don't forget, success is only temporary. One moment you're on top, the next, you're not. Just remember that." I stared at the message for a long time, letting her words sink in. But I didn't feel the anger I used to. Instead, I felt a strange sense of pity for her. She was still the same person, caught up in her insecurities and convinced that success was a fleeting thing. But she didn't understand. I had built something that wasn't just a flash in the pan. Alara wasn't a trend, it was a brand built on passion, dedication, and real hard work. I didn't reply to her text. I didn't need to. The success I was experiencing wasn't meant to impress her. It was meant to prove to myself that I was capable of achieving anything I set my mind to. A few days later, I received a call from my PR team, confirming that Vogue had decided to feature me in their next issue. It was surreal. The magazine would be covering not just my shoes, but my story, the challenges I had overcome, the work I had put in, and the way my brand had transformed. The next morning, I decided to check social media, something I rarely did these days. My feed was full of congratulatory messages from fans and customers. But then, a post caught my eye. It was from Greta. She had posted a photo of herself in the same Nordstrom store I had just done my event at, with a caption that read, "Great to see my sister's brand in Nordstrom. So proud of you, Chloe. I always knew you could make it." It felt like a slap in the face, but it also felt like an acknowledgement. She had finally recognized my success. Not in the way I wanted, not with the full admiration I deserved, but it was enough. In the end, that's all I really needed. I wasn't waiting for Greta to validate me anymore. I was doing this for myself. And as for my brand, Alara was growing faster than ever. It was no longer just a hobby or a dream. It was a force to be reckoned with. Every day, I woke up knowing I had earned this, and that, no matter what, I would never let anyone take that from me again. Greta may have been jealous, competitive, and dismissive at times, but in the end, I got the last word. My success didn't need her approval. It was built on my own sweat, my own tears, and my own unshakable belief in myself.